So as promised, this is the finishing effect we're going to apply to what we've created. And doesn't it look stunning? It really is an effective way to level up your design and that portfolio piece that we promised you'll have by the end of the class. So this is a little different from if I flick back to Illustrator. So this is in Photoshop, by the way. And if you look at the course resources, I'm going to send a link so that you can download this mock-up template from the source. And there's actually a number of others included under that link, which are completely free to use. So I do customize this. I'll show you in the video how I like to customize it. But if you download directly from the source, I think that saves any copyright issues. So please get hold of that link and download the PSD, and then you'll be able to follow along with this lesson. So if we go back to Illustrator, you'll be able to see here, this was the latest iteration of the logo that I had balanced and I was quite happy with. Now, so that I can walk through this with you, here's one I created earlier in Photoshop, but I'm going to show you now from scratch how to throw your design into this mock-up, and it's really easy. So make sure you can see your layers in Photoshop. Again, I won't teach you to suck eggs. We'll assume you're partly familiar with Photoshop, and if not, there are other videos to help you with that. And you can see here in this PSD, it says logo here, and if you extended it, it would say double click to place your logo. So do that, just hover here on the layer preview and double click. This then brings up an outline that the PSD is drawing from, adding effects to, and it's creating that nice finished result. So I'll delete the version I'd created earlier. And you remember we had copied our artwork from Illustrator? Well, now you want to just paste it here. You can paste it as a smart object, but I'm going to paste it with pixels because I haven't yet completely finished the artwork. So this will save us some time. And then scale it. You can hold Alt to scale from center so that it fills the majority of this artboard. Now you'll notice it's transparent, but because I haven't quite finished the artwork yet, there are these elements where there's white, which we would later take some care to remove with Illustrator. So for now, just to achieve the effect we're looking for, I want you to use the magic wand. The shortcut for that is W. Make sure you're using the same settings as me at the top here, and click on any portion of a white to select all the white on the artboard. Hit delete and Command D to deselect. So you'll want to close this PSB layer that's opened. It's nested inside a PSD. So you click to close, and then you want to select save. And you will see that mocked up in the PSD and rendered with these very attractive finishing effects. So I'm quite happy with the result here. I really like the way the secondary tagline looks. The M is really distinct, and because it's a thicker element, it stands out a mile from the detail we have in the background, but doesn't the detail bring it to life. So this is already looking really effective. Some tweaks and changes I would make, just so this becomes a little more usable. And by all means, you could save this out right now and use this as your portfolio piece to show clients what you can do. But here are some tweaks I would suggest making. So if you look at the layers, you'll see one of the layers, it's a metallic effect, and it's got some highlights and some shadows there. So I would recommend tweaking that later. If you scroll further down, you can see it's got a background. And if you turn that background off, there's some really heavy shadowing, which looks great on black, but if you want to present a client a usable version of this, so you're actually presenting them almost a Chrome version of their logo that they can use, well, here's what I would suggest doing to make sure that that's usable. So actually we'll come to that in a second. First, can you see where the D and London are just a little too dark? If you zoom out, it's a little bit difficult to read those. Although it makes this look photorealistic, I like to remove the shadowing there. So if you look through the layers, I believe it's this layer here that's adding that shadow. And you can simply reduce the opacity to soften that effect, or you could use the eraser, the shortcut is E, to just click. If you've got the opacity lowered, you can just reduce that effect on anything that's not quite legible. So that's the first tweak I'd make to this this particular mockup file. So that's looking pretty good. If we change the background, let's turn this off and add a black background. That's absolutely fine as it is. If the background's white, well, then you notice a problem. So first of all, the drop shadow really isn't working. And to tweak that, it's these 4 layers here. So the bottom 3, I think you can remove altogether, or severely lower the opacity. And the top layer, you can either reduce the opacity, but you can't. Yes, because I believe that's the layer where all of the rendering's happening. So you need to double click where it says FX, and then go just to the drop shadow section here, and this is where you would reduce the opacity of that drop shadow. Now you'll notice if you got rid of the drop shadow entirely, you can hardly see the artwork. So let's leave it off for now, and I'll show you how to get around this. And the problem is this layer here, you'll notice some of the texture it's rendering is almost completely white. So to get around that, I use levels, and the shortcut is Command L, open levels, and I just pull down the output level to about here, so that we haven't got those areas that are completely burnt out. Then if we click open effects again, you can see we've got some bevel and emboss happening, and you could reduce the opacity if you wanted, or you could darken the bevel so it's a bit of a darker chromy color. Those are some options. But I like to take this layer and open curves, so that's Command M, and click and yank the curves right the way down so that we start to get this much darker, almost a gunmetal grey, and then add some contrast by clicking and dragging up at the higher end of curves. And then finally I remove the edge of it to remove the stark white, and just play with this until you're happy with the contrast. But you want to make sure there's no areas where things are really fading out and it's becoming difficult to view or to read elements of the logo. So that's quite nice. I'm happy with that there. And the advantage now, once you've made these adjustments to the finishing effect on this particular PSD, if you were to select these layers, you've now actually got a transparent version of the logo complete with finishing effects. Let's just undo that. So if you delete the background altogether, you can now delete group and contents, provide this as a light version of the logo. to your client as a PNG or a transparent file. So they'll still need a vector, which of course you'll have to work up in Illustrator, but you could provide your client, and there's no reason not to, with a beautiful rendered version with full transparency that they'll be able to use on a light background. And if we click undo enough times, we can take us back to this stage here, where you could provide this as a transparent file that a client could use on a dark background. So these finishing effects are really powerful, and they give you the ability to give a client something that's just got that extra special finishing effect applied to it. But of course, if you don't want to do that, or if it's not necessary for the project, then you know, by all means, color or finish off the artwork in the usual way you would. And we'll look at that in the next video with some final adjustments.